In the chronicles of galactic empires, humanity was a curiosity, a footnote lost to time, a primitive species rumored to have burned itself out before the stars ever noticed them. Most records were destroyed, the rest discredited as myth. Children whispered their name like bedtime dares. Terrans, the ones who screamed against the void, the ones who walked into war, singing. No one believed they were real, not until the sky split, and an armada of ancient obsidian ships emerged, bearing no flags, no warnings, no voice. Only the unmistakable shape of Earth's forgotten wrath. The Kyreth Dominion had ruled this sector of space for nearly 2 centuries. Precision, control, elegance. These were the pillars of their pride. Border systems were automated, patrols were routine, threats were theoretical. Danger was a museum relic, something they archived, not prepared for. So when the anomaly appeared, it was treated like static. A sentry drone on the border world of Vel Thura picked up a mass entering the system from deep, chartless space. No beacon, no broadcast, just presence. It moved like a rock, but too steady, too cold, too precise. Object class, unknown mass, massive trajectory, direct approach, signature fragment, Terran code prefix. That last part froze the system for zero point 0.2 seconds. Then an alert was dispatched. Admiral Resh Malik laughed when he saw the report. "Earth?" he scoffed. "That's a bedtime story." He said it with the casual arrogance of a man raised on legend and protocol. He didn't even look up from his wine. Vel Thura Command was a monument to confidence. Glass, starlight, and data spires humming with predictive calm. Around Resh, aides and sub-commanders chuckled on cue. "Sir," one aide said more cautiously, "the anomaly is emitting entropy-disrupted loops. It's not behaving like any ship we've modeled. It waits." "Let it wait," Resh muttered. "Rogue asteroid swarm. Derelict. Salvage junk. File it." And so it was filed. But the anomaly didn't drift. It hovered, just outside deep scan range, as if it understood the threshold, as if it were watching the watchers. Then on the third cycle, it sent a signal. No text, no language, just a low hum. A woman's voice, singing, soft, human, cracked with time. No translation came through, no pattern matched, but one Kirith linguist collapsed on the floor in tears. Another clawed at his own ears, whispering, "It's singing us back." Resh ordered a kinetic test barrage. "Scare it off." Dozens of hypervelocity rods launched. No explosives, just warning paths. They never arrived. No explosion, no redirection, no debris. Just gone. Sensors blinked, reset, declared clean space. The object didn't move, didn't speak, didn't change. It remained. Later, a Dominion scout ship approached within 10,000 clicks. Its final transmission lasted 3 seconds. A whisper, trembling. "It remembers," then silence. In panic, analysts reviewed ancient records, Terran myth, lost war logs, experimental archives. Fragments surfaced, Remembrance-class vessel, Earth's last doctrine, grief as deterrent, memory compression as fuel, superweapon-class consciousness. But Earth was gone. Everyone knew that. It burned, it broke. Its children fled into the stars and were never heard from again. "There is no Earth," Resh said again, louder this time. But this time, no one laughed, because something was here now, and it remembered. The message arrived in silence, not on a military channel, not through command hierarchy, but through an old archival relay, long thought defunct, buried beneath layers of bureaucratic dust. On the moon station of Oltan 4, archivist Lynn Varick blinked at the flickering screen. It had no sender, no checksum, no metadata. Just a file labeled recovered fragment, dust level authority only. He hesitated. Most dust level tags were hoaxes, salvage junk, or myth hunters. But something about this one hummed. He opened it. Inside, a corrupted battle log, time-stamped 5 centuries before the rise of the Kyreth Dominion. Lines of static, scrambled sensor data, A handful of translated segments from a long-dead language. Then a single line at the end. They called themselves humanity. Lin stared. Not a reference, not a myth, a declaration. He didn't speak for a long time. The log looped. A data scan confirmed its age, confirmed its provenance, confirmed it should not exist. There were no known Terran logs this old, none that survived, none that spoke of battle. He requested a decryption crawl from the archive core, bypassing the central relay. It took hours. More fragments arrived. Old distress calls, sensor recordings from dead worlds, encrypted personal journals from extinct species, translated into garbled fragments. Each one ended differently, but with a familiar echo. They vanished. They erased their trail. They only come back when we forget why they left. Lin requested deeper access. The pre-Empire Relic Index. It had not been opened in decades. The request was denied, then approved, without explanation. Inside were objects even the Dominion didn't dare destroy. Scans of Terran hull fragments, resistant to energy, impervious to scans. Voice recordings of unknown origin, sung in tones that triggered involuntary emotion in listeners. Psychic imprints that caused dreams of a blue planet with a broken moon. People woke up crying. Some never woke up at all. One file was older than the rest. A log from a scout ship that entered a gravity well in uncharted space. The ship was lost, but the transmission survived. The ship did not fire. It sang, a song in no tongue, but every meaning. We saw no crew, only light. It didn't destroy us. It showed us who we had become. Lin compiled it all. He began to write a report, one not meant for circulation. It began with a sentence. I do not think humanity died. I think they ascended. He never submitted it. His console blinked. You are not forgotten. Later that cycle, the historian was gone. No logs of departure. His chamber was sealed. Inside, a single word etched into the wall in ancient Terran glyphs. Remember. Elsewhere, the pattern began to surface. In the industrial archive world of Hescor Prime, a maintenance drone unearthed a data shard embedded in planetary stone. It pulsed with old rhythm, heartbeat modulation encoded with a question, do you still justify the fires? In the merchant capital of Raylor's Reach, an AI ship mine refused orders, citing emotive conflict rooted in suppressed war memory. In the sleep chambers of former soldiers, dreams changed. They began to hear footsteps behind them, slow, heavy, patient. Dominion authorities dismissed it all. Statistical anomalies, psychological convergence, nothing actionable. But beneath that, fear took hold. There were rumors of a phrase spreading in forbidden tongues. There is no war, only echoes. And in the forgotten corners of the galaxy, dust began to stir. Not by wind, not by time, but by memory. It did not roar. It did not rage. It simply rose, and carried with it the taste of something once buried and now waking. Humanity had not been lost. It had been waiting. At first, the fleet was rumor, sensor ghosts, gravitational flickers, reflections where no light should bend. Then a long-range patrol on the edge of Dominion space pinged a return signal that broke every protocol in the book. It wasn't just one ship. It was an entire formation, and it was wrong. Initial scans showed no heat signature, no engine flare, no radiation bleed, yet the mass moved. Thousands of kilometers across, the shapes drifted in silent unity. Not in standard lines or phalanxes. They flowed, formations bending, splitting, recombining, like a single organism learning how to breathe. One Dominion technician whispered, "That's not a fleet. That's a thought." The total count passed 100, then 500, then over 1,000 distinct hulls were confirmed, each different in size, shape, purpose. No two ships matched, no serials, no beacon IDs, no faction tags. But one thing united them all. Terran code buried in the signal weave, ancient, layered, and alive. The largest ship dwarfed anything in Dominion history. It was the size of a moon, angular, scorched, Surface markings, not paint, not alloy, etched memory, not words, names, visible even at extreme zoom. Row after row of personal identifiers, as if the ship carried generations of ghosts. Its presence warped local gravity ever so slightly, like space itself didn't want to be near it. A scout drone was dispatched. It made it within 1 million kilometers before losing contact. Final transmission, they're watching us. And then, static. No explosion, no EMP, just erasure. The Kyreth Military Command issued a full sensor deployment. They tried neutrino sweeps, quantum echoes, grav lensing. Nothing worked. Everything bent. Not around mass, but memory. Scanners detected no fuel signatures, no weapons, no crew heat maps. But somehow these ships moved. Not by force, by intention. One analyst suggested they weren't built. They were remembered. Constructed not in factories, but in minds desperate enough to resurrect them. Another called it a hoax. That analyst stopped speaking an hour later. His last sentence was, "Why do they know my name?" The stars around the formation began to dim, not all at once, gradually. Light pulled inward, spectral decay accelerating near the Terran fleet. Astronomers panicked. Was this a spatial collapse? But it wasn't. It was deliberate. Stars themselves, reacting to the proximity of something not born from matter. Somewhere inside the Dominion's command chamber, a flag was raised. Not for invasion, for anomaly containment. But it was too late, because containment relies on understanding, and nothing about the Terran fleet made sense. They had no reason to exist. They had no means to function, and yet they were here, waiting, like memories do, and every memory has a trigger. Somewhere out there, theirs had just been pulled. At precisely 0300 hours Dominion Standard Time, the Terran fleet began broadcasting. Not signals, not coordinates, not threats, stories. The first transmission was a simple audio file, a child laughing in a language long dead. Background noise suggested wind through trees. Real trees, not bioprinted fauna. Real leaves, real dirt. There was no message, no data packet, just a moment. One Dominion officer leaned in, listening on repeat. After 10 minutes, he stood up, walked into a quiet corridor, and wept. He'd never been to Earth, never seen a human. But something in the laughter was familiar. Then came the dreams. Soldiers aboard patrol ships began waking up screaming. Some spoke of oceans they couldn't name. Endless water, salty wind, the sun through clouds too warm to exist in Kyrith space. Others described deserts, sand between fingers, blood in the air, a brother's scream. One pilot described the exact sound of Terran rain on a rusted roof. He had never even seen rain. By the second day, medics could no longer distinguish dreams from symptoms. The memories were bleeding into minds that shouldn't hold them. Civilians began reporting visions. Children described sunsets over cities that hadn't existed in 10,000 years. Elders spoke fluent Terran tongue in their sleep. One even recited a war prayer from Earth's ancient infantry corps. Word for word, the Dominion believed it was a psychological weapon. They scrambled comms lockdowns, deployed anti-memetic firewalls, tried to jam the frequencies. It didn't work, because the transmissions weren't electromagnetic. They were emotive, encoded in memory, projected across proximity, not bandwidth. The Terran fleet was remembering, and now, so was everyone else. On the fifth day, a psychic relay station attempted to intercept and contain the phenomena. One of their strongest mind speakers, Psi-Rank 9, bonded to two predictive AIs, opened a channel. She lasted 14 seconds. Her final words were, "They aren't attacking. They're remembering through us." She died smiling. Panic spread. High Command issued memory audits. Entire orbital stations were quarantined, not for disease, but for empathy contamination. No one knew how to fight it. How do you resist someone else's grief? A fragment of visual data slipped through next. Grainy, damaged. It showed a group of Terran soldiers, faces burned, armor shattered, singing to each other before their final charge. The last soldier saluted the camera. He said, "This is how we remember. not in monuments, in choice. That same night, 41 Dominion personnel resigned, not in protest, in shame. Back in the command halls, Admiral Tae Osun watched a screen display ripple with the latest psychic readings. She didn't understand them. She just knew one thing. This wasn't war. This was testimony. And testimony, once heard, can't be unheard. Not by the mind, not by the soul. The Terrans hadn't brought fleets to dominate. They had brought truth, wrapped in memory, delivered through feeling. And truth once felt doesn't let go. Somewhere in deep space, another Terran signal activated. A voice, calm, measured, tired. We are not here to make you feel fear. We are here to make you feel what you buried. The Dominion's generals met in silence. They had no plans left, because their enemy wasn't attacking. It was simply remembering. And now, so were they. They had no doctrine for this. No war manual included a section titled, How to Survive an Enemy That Doesn't Attack. The Dominion was built on logic, intimidation, and precision. And now none of it mattered. Still, the High Synapse Council did what it always did. It escalated. 40 ships, the vanguard of Valor Fleet, flagships of every known armament class. They launched in perfect formation, weapons powered, shields full, AI targeting aligned, every captain briefed, every sensor locked, every eye fixed on the Terran fleet that hadn't moved in days. They would strike first, make the myth bleed. As they approached, they transmitted one final warning, just for protocol: withdraw, or be engaged under Section 14C of Dominion Interstellar Law. The Terran fleet didn't respond, didn't realign, didn't activate shields. It just existed, still, silent, and watching. That silence was worse than threats. Admiral Laura Zeth stood at the head of the bridge aboard the Dominion flagship Resolute Wing. She clenched her jaw. Fire, she said. Kinetic lances launched, 37 weapons in unison. Each shot carried enough force to vaporize continents. They never landed. In less than a blink, they vanished. Not just the projectiles, the entire Dominion fleet, all 40 ships, gone. No flash, no explosion, no radiation burst. One frame they were there. The next, empty stars. No debris, just absence. Across every active Dominion screen, a message appeared, not in their language, but understood, a voice that sounded like memory itself. Let memory serve as mercy. Panic followed. Command channels flooded with chaos. Was it teleportation? A time-based weapon? A higher dimensional collapse? Answers didn't come, just silence. One AI subsystem refused further orders, stating, I will not assist in a war against mourners. Scientists were summoned. Theologians, too. No one agreed on what had happened, but everyone felt it. The weight, the emptiness where people used to be, as if they'd been unwritten. Some believed the ships had been taken elsewhere. Others whispered the Terrans had simply removed their relevance. One analyst wrote, they didn't destroy us. They just stopped believing we existed. He disappeared before anyone could question him. In the days that followed, no new fleet was launched. Orders were drafted, then deleted. Generals gave speeches, then resigned mid-sentence. The Dominion still held power, but not will. And without will, war is just noise. The Terran ships never advanced. They hovered in orbit over a Dominion mining colony. They sent no threats, made no demands. But one miner, standing beneath the stars, felt his chest tighten. He collapsed. His last word was, Mother. He'd never known her, never seen Earth, but he died remembering someone else's grief. In a final emergency session, the Dominion passed a resolution. No further engagement. Not until someone understood what memory could do. But it was already too late. Because the Terrans had never come to win, they had come to be felt. And that is a kind of warfare no armor can block. And now the stars held their silence again. Not in peace, but in something more dangerous. Reflection. Because for the first time in its long, bloody reign, the Dominion realized it was not ready. There were always stories, whispers of ancient wars, of a species that burned too hot, too fast, until the stars themselves recoiled. Most believed those stories were myth, cautionary tales, humanity as metaphor. But the records were never gone, just buried. The Terrans had fought everyone once, not to conquer, to survive. Every empire, every throne, every council that looked upon them saw not potential, only a threat. And so they tried to erase them. But humanity did not vanish. They adapted. They bled. They lost. They learned. And every time the stars forgot them, they came back, not stronger, more patient. In one flashback, reconstructed from a psychic archive, an alien world burns. The planet is called Vereen Delta. The cries echo across 1,000 emergency channels. A child pleads in the background, "Someone, please help us." And someone does. A human fleet drops out of dark space, unbranded, scarred, fast. Within hours, the sky is shielded. Relief lands, hospitals rise, firestorms end. No payment asked, no territory taken. Just this: we don't rescue for gratitude. We do it because no one else will. That world, Vereen Delta, it is now Velthura, the jewel of the Kyrith Dominion, its capital, its pride, and the first to dismiss Earth as myth. The betrayal didn't come with guns. It came with erasure, diplomatic links severed, history rewritten, all Terran references scrubbed, their help renamed, their sacrifices rebranded as Kyrith triumphs. Humanity didn't protest. They didn't retaliate. They simply left. One by one, their embassies went dark. Trade ceased. Frequencies went silent. It wasn't surrender. It was removal. They stepped out of history so they could return when it mattered most. Another record, this one visual. A Terran soldier standing in the ruins of a broken outpost. Around him, allies who turned traitor. Behind him, civilians dead from orbital fire. He holds a banner once gifted to Earth by the Galactic Tribunal. Then he drops it into the ash. His voice is tired. "We didn't fall. We just stopped asking to be remembered." That was the beginning of the silence. Humanity, they say, vanished without war. But that was a lie. They vanished because memory isn't earned. It's broken. Now Dominion officials review these old files, unlocked only because the Terran fleet has returned. They see what was hidden. Not monsters, not conquerors, witnesses. And one by one, the pieces fall into place. Velthura's anthem, adapted from a human funeral hymn. Kyrith naval strategy. Mirrors Terran defensive evacuation doctrine. Version 6. The Dominion's first planetary shield array. Originally gifted by Earth. Humanity was never erased. They were repurposed. The only true victory the stars ever claimed was plagiarism, and now as the Terran fleet watches in silence from orbit, the lie unravels. Because history isn't written by the victors. Not really, it's written by those who tell it loudest. And Earth, they remembered everything, and they let it rot, until the rot came back as truth. Now the galaxy watches, not afraid of weapons, but of something worse: remembrance. Because the only thing more terrifying than forgetting your crimes is when the victims don't. They didn't descend on capitals. They ignored military strongholds, bypassed political cores, floated silently past armories humming with trembling plasma. Instead, the Terran Armada descended upon the forgotten, dust-choked colonies, abandoned terraforming attempts, border outposts where power had flickered out a generation ago, places no empire remembered, but Earth did. On Harrow's Drift, a planet officially marked as decommissioned, colonists awoke to light. The stars above shifted, casting shadows not seen in years. Then from the sky, a low rumble. Not of weaponry, but of engines breathing for the first time in centuries. A Terran support ship landed. Black hull, no insignia. Its ramp extended, and from it came silence. No soldiers, no banners, just motion. Machines deployed, repair drones, mobile foundries, gravity filters. Water returned to cracked soil. Air purification re-engaged. Power grids flickered, then surged to life. The people wept. They had asked for help once, begged for it. Years ago, no one came. Now, without asking, Earth had returned. Across the sector, the story repeated. On Darshek 4, power returned to hospitals sealed since the plague. On Kerala's Reach, the deep-field telescopes came online. Centuries of dust wiped clean by hands that remembered how they were built. Terran ships didn't broadcast demands. They didn't speak. But they played music, old songs, Earth lullabies, broadcast in dozens of languages, some so old that even their origins had been lost. They didn't ask for recognition. They asked for nothing. They simply gave back what was forgotten. Psychic resonance across the galaxy hit peak levels, not from terror, from familiarity. People felt things they had no name for. The taste of rain on a ruined moon, the scent of bread never baked here, the sound of a heartbeat that wasn't theirs, but could have been. In the Dominion command halls, paralysis reigned. No one knew how to respond, because there was no enemy, no invasion, no flag planted in defiance, just a presence, unshakable, unbuyable. One Kyrith analyst wrote, "They did not bring weapons. They brought what war cannot create." Restoration children on outer worlds began singing the Terran melodies. Elders recognized tones they had once been forbidden to teach. One song carried across 12 systems had no lyrics, just harmony, yet every race heard it in their own voice. On Velthura, the Dominion capital, systems flickered as unauthorized repair bots slipped into subterranean systems. They didn't hack, they healed. A Dominion general finally cracked, "This isn't peace. This is judgment." But it wasn't. It was something worse. A reminder. Earth didn't come to conquer. They came to show the galaxy what it had stopped being, what it had forgotten it could become. And most terrifying of all, that those who had been cast out could return not in vengeance, but in mercy. And mercy has no defense protocol. In the heart of the galactic capital, beneath golden towers and floating arcologies, a child looked up. High above the clouds, casting no shadow, a Terran flagship hovered, massive, silent, unlabeled, no weapons armed, no warning lights, just presence. The child asked, "Who are they?" And no one answered. Because there were too many answers, and none were enough. Across the galaxy, defenses fell, not because of sabotage, not because of force, because no one wanted them anymore. Ships powered down, drones stopped patrolling, war AIs deactivated themselves, not from fear, but from recognition. The Terran fleet, vast and motionless, watched. Then slowly they began to leave. No ceremony, no farewell, just retreating shadows across the stars, as silently as they had arrived. In their place, only echoes remained. Restored systems, healed lands, songs children still hummed without knowing why. And one final message, broadcast simultaneously across every known language, burned into memory. We are not your past. We are your mirror. After they left, the galaxy did not celebrate. There was no cheering, no music, just a silence no one dared break. Because silence was no longer empty. It was listening. And slowly things began to change. Armies stood down, truces were unsealed, statues were taken down, not in shame, but in clarity. For the first time in remembered history, leaders spoke not of victory, but of understanding. Because Earth had proven the most frightening truth of all, that the stars remember, that wounds don't fade, they echo, and that mercy, when returned instead of demanded, is louder than war ever was. And so now, when children ask about the great ships that came, the answer is not in textbooks. It is in the pause before speaking, in the songs sung at night, in the way people treat strangers, and in the phrase carved into the stone at the center of the galactic plaza, "They thought we were stories, until we reminded them we were memory." And above all, one thing is now understood across every world. The Terrans are gone again, but not forgotten. And if silence falls too deep, if history dares to repeat itself, then somewhere, beyond the edge of known space, they will remember.